everyone. Welcome to the Raptor Queens Podcast, the first ever all-women podcast covering the Toronto Raptors. My name is Sarah Khalil, and I'm here with my other queens of the North, Sonali Sharma and Esi Magic. Allison Hope, unfortunately, is not with us today. She has to do some shift work and is unavailable, so that's too bad. We'll definitely miss her voice, but the three of us will carry the team because, you know, that's what happens. Yeah. So this week was an interesting week. We're definitely in the mid-season January grind. The teams the Raptors played this week were the Spurs, the Hawks, the Cavs, and the Pistons. It wasn't particularly difficult competition this week necessarily based on records. The Raptors did go 4-0. This is part of a 10-game winning streak that they're currently on. So the Raptors have now won 10 straight games to move into second into the Eastern Conference and third in the NBA. And a whole bunch of other things happened this week that kind of carry you through the midseason grind. So Kyle Lowry was named as an All-Star reserve, and now he made the All-Star team for the 6th year in a row. He also became the Raptors franchise leader for assists. And Serge Ibaka also set a record. He became the only player in NBA history to record 500 three-pointers and 1,500 blocks. And Nick Nurse clinched the coaching position for the Eastern team for the All-Star game. So all sorts of things are happening for the Raptors. This is clearly a big season for the team, and for a lot of these players, things are happening for them as well. And then, of course, there was this, story of the year, some additional injuries. Rondae Hollis Jefferson and Marc Gasol were both injured in the game against the Hawks, and Norman Powell fractured his finger last night in Detroit and is out indefinitely. So that is our big picture recap of this week. So now we're going to turn it over. Let's start with Esi. Esi, what stood out to you this week? Whether you want to talk about the games, All-Stars, what do you want to go first? You go ahead.
So this week, it's actually kind of funny. I was driving in my car and randomly it came to my head that, wow, it must be easy to be a Bucks fan. 'Cause when you're just winning so much, it's hard to really overanalyze anything or find too many negatives. So I was just this is nice, constantly winning. But overall, it definitely this week made me feel more hopeful about the season and what's coming up. There are a couple highlights that I saw that were really promising to me in terms of what the team is doing and what Nick Nurse is doing. I really liked how in the Spurs game, they utilized Pascal at the end with having him draw the defense in, and then dish out to Fred. I think he did it twice to Fred. But I really like that idea of having Pascal do that at the end of games. And it was all under around the 1 minute and 30 mark in the fourth quarter. But I really like seeing Pascal do that at the end of games, kind of facilitate rather than be kind of a pure ISO player. So I was really excited about that because it gave me some, hope, as I mentioned before, for what we can do in the playoffs, and kind of just leave the really clutch plays to Norm and Fred and Kyle and have, Pascal just kind of drive and draw the defense. I really like that strategy. And then also with how Nick Nurse has been playing Norm at the end of games over OG Anunoby, I think that also shows a lot of promise in terms of, I know I've been complaining about who's going to close in the fourth and, having clutch players and all this stuff. So I like that. I like to see Norm end the games, even though he's been coming off the bench. I think that's really good in terms of having more of a clutch player on the floor. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of what the Clippers do with Lou Williams, because even though he comes off the bench, he still ends any sort of close games. And then other than that, I can say that I feel okay with us going into the playoffs with this current team, which is a contrast from what I said before. But and also according to Adrian Woj, I don't know why I'm bothering to say it. Woj. I'm just going to say Woj. He senses, this is just his sense, he hasn't said he has a source, but he senses that Masai is going to stay as is. That's what he said recently in terms of the trade situation. So And it doesn't surprise me just because, at this point, the team's number 2 in the East. You can't really, you don't want to do anything that's going to disrupt the chemistry too much. And just the crop of players out there right now for a trade aren't really ideal anyway. So yeah, I'm okay with staying the course, and I look forward to, what comes next.
Okay, that's great. Sonali, I'm going to just hold off for 1 second. I want to follow up with Esi on this because this actually is a shift from as recently as last week.
Exactly.
And it's cool to hear. I think, Sonali, you were saying last week, you and I are the optimist, Allison's the pessimist, and Esi, you're probably more of the realist amongst us. You don't really have a particular bend either way. You more just like to look at what's actually happening on the court and then decide. So the fact that you have moved from being I don't know, this team is not a playoff team, this is a regular season team, to now saying, I'm actually okay with this team being the team that represents the Raptors in the playoffs. Well, what happened? What did you see this week? Maybe you already just told us, but is there anything in particular that really changed it for you?
I think it's over the span of 2 weeks, I would say, not just this week. Even seeing how clutch Kyle has become, and Pascal's got his wings back a little bit as well. Yeah, and then Fred has been pretty clutch as well, especially in the Spurs game too. So I think it's just seeing more of the players. We've had so many injuries as well, so that's influenced being able to see enough of them on the floor at once. And also too, when I just think about the potential players out there, it's just, there's nothing that's really worth, a big trade. I have been seeing some rumors though about, other teams inquiring about Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, but us losing him wouldn't be a massive shift or anything. And then also too, I had this thought in my head too that I didn't mention to you guys. It was about 2 weeks ago. I'm just looking at Sarah's face, that's why I'm laughing. Where I was thinking about Norm and how Norm has been getting so good. And it was I don't know if this makes Norm more tradable or less tradable. And so I was having this debate about, he's getting so good, so that does increase his value, but then he's also getting so good that we should keep him. So then I'm just you know what? I don't know what to do. I think maybe we just have to, and then as the weeks went on, I started seeing more improvement in other areas and the way they've been drawing up plays at the end of games. And so there you have the shift.
Wow. And full circle on Norm as well. That's pretty cool.
No, let's not get too carried away. I love Norm, but I'm not like you at Norm. Let's just be straight on that.
It's true. Norm to me is probably my favorite Raptor at the moment, but okay. Sonali, why don't you go ahead and respond or share whatever thoughts you have as well?
Yeah, well, first of all, Esi, I sort of agree with you. This week these last 4 games have been really interesting, and also, just a very difficult week for everyone to get through with Kobe passing, and but lots of things to celebrate as well too. When we were playing the Hawks, there was a really nice sort of shout out to Vince Carter. He just turned 43 last week. It sort of reminded me of just how far we've come as Raptors and Raptors fans since Vince Carter was a part of our dynasty, so to speak. And so to see him back, and then also that same game to see Kyle Lowry beat Jose Calderon's the number of assists, he got 3,772. It's been a really heart-filled week and lots of positivity. Seeing Norman Powell, you've covered the games, but the things that I saw behind the scenes, for example, Norman came in with his number 24 hoodie with the infinity symbol, dedicating it to Gigi and Kobe. And then also to see Trae Young play so well that night, because from what I understand, he was Giannis' favorite player. And so just to see the sheer heart and the veracity with what the sort of the hunger that these players have and how well they've been performing was just great. It was really sad to see Marc Gasol dealing with his hamstring issues. And a part of me was really scared after that game because I was reading a lot about, we haven't lost since Marc Gasol has been back and just the way he is out on the court. I was scared that we were going to lose, but we've managed to keep, we've won 10 in a row, and that's really wonderful. The Cleveland game, Norman Powell was amazing. OG Anunoby, even in spite, I was a little bit scared about him in the Hawks game, and whether he had suffered from an injury or not as well too, but he had 9 points and he had 3 rebounds in the 31 minutes that he played against Cleveland. Some of the sort of comments I had around his defense was a little bit lacking. I mean, we had Garland, Sexton, and Love just getting in with their dribble penetration and not wanting to blame OG for all of the sort of struggles with the defense we were having with the Cleveland game. We still won. And so, it's been a good week. I am really hoping that in spite of all these injuries that we can keep going forward. And I mean, my favorite moments from last night's game, just what a dunk machine Norman Powell was. And Sarah, I have to agree with you. I am on Team Norman, always have been. And just seeing Chris Boucher back, and Chris Boucher's, those little moments of him on the court, like he's one of those people as well too that's really displaying his ability to flail around with his entire body, and it's been a really interesting week. And anytime that we have this throwdown on Andre Drummond, it just makes my heart smile. So.
Okay, great thoughts. So one of the things I'm present to as you're talking about this is you really are highlighting the team chemistry, and I just need to do this. I need to throw in a joke, but if the Raptors win 2 in a row, do we call them a dynasty or do we call them a dynasty?
Good one.
We might as well call them dynamite at that point.
Maybe we'll start with seeing if we can get 2 championships in a row. But so anyway, I'm gonna move on from that.
I just want to highlight that I was trying to be really positive with my takes today. So Esi, I've been on team positivity this week.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I think there's a lot to be positive about, and one of part of it, like we've just mentioned, so there's the chemistry, and then let's talk about just how the Raptors are with each other for just a second and how happy they are to celebrate one another's milestones. And so to see the team when Kyle became the all-time franchise assist leader, and just give him this group hug and celebrate with him, and how almost how devoted the team was to having Nick be the all-star coach. Again, this is the mid-season grind, and they're playing against competition that they don't necessarily have to show up for. If you don't have the mental fortitude to actually show up and play these games and win the games that you're supposed to win, that's part of what championship mentality is. But they actually did have something to play for this week. They had Nick Nurse's position as the all-star coach on the line, potentially. There's a number 2 seed on the line. And it just recently on this win streak, people are even saying, hey, maybe there's a chance for the Raptors to take a run for the number 1 seed and close the gap on the Bucks. Anyway, there's a lot of different things happening for the Raptors this week. And I don't really know if I have much more to say about the games themselves. I think maybe we can move into
I wanted to add about what you're saying about the schedule, or maybe it just clicked in my head because you said something similar. I don't remember if you actually said the word schedule. But I do want to say that I don't like when people knock teams for beating easy teams. It's they'll have a win streak and they'll be like, oh, they played only easy teams. I think it's something to take into consideration in terms of deep analysis. But at the end of the day, good teams are supposed to beat the bad teams. They're supposed to do that. So they're just doing what they're supposed to do. And it's something that like I find also happens with the Lakers as well, because they for a while they were losing to bad teams and then losing to better teams, and then they were beating so many easy teams. People were saying that, oh, their record is just because of that. So it just kind of reminds me of that whole thing where people try to knock top teams for beating the good teams as if it's ever bad to beat the good teams, beating the bad teams as if it's ever bad to beat the bad teams. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. And to be fair, this has also been a really good stretch for the Raptors to have a relatively easy schedule, because it's been the stretch when we've actually seen our team healthy. For how many games in a row were we healthy? 7?
We had 2 at the beginning of the year. Is that what you mean?
Since we've come back, how many games in a row before Mark and Rondé were injured again? I think it was only 7 games or something, maybe 8.
I feel like it's even less than that, because Mark got injured pretty fast, Ian.
Right?
I think it was like 6 games.
Okay. Yeah. So it was nice. It was a nice 6 or 7 game stretch or whatever it was. And, nice enough to potentially even be part of the reason why, Esi, you've changed your mind on this team or started to see something different with this team, because, a fully healthy team actually is really competitive and clicks really well together and plays really well together. So my point being that this easier schedule has been a really nice way to actually have this team practice together and play together and see what they're capable of. One of the things that I've been concerned about from an evaluation standpoint is that with all of the injuries, it's been hard to know what this team is capable of and hard to know what the team is not capable of. And so both the floor and the ceiling are kind of difficult to ascertain this season so far. But yeah, I mean, like, despite all of this, still second in the East. And why would you risk messing with this chemistry? Seems like more and more the buzz is that there won't be a trade for the Raptors. All right, let's move into our next segment, which is our King of the North segment. Which player to you stands out this week and is our King of the North? Sonali, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I went for maybe the obvious choice. I went for Kyle Lowry. Six All-Star games. I mean, he just had an interview recently, I forget with what newspaper, but he said, getting voted in by coaches that are some of the best coaches in the league is a real honor. And just the records he's broken and just the leadership he's shown to the Raptors. I mean, he was traded to Toronto from Houston when he was 26 years old, and we've had him since then. And it's just, it's such an honor to have him represent the team and also the Raptors franchise. And I'm just really proud of him. So I chose him as my king.
Beautiful. All right, Esi, what about you?
So my King of the North for the week is Serge Ibaka. 20 plus points in the last 3 games. He's just been very efficient, minimum 50% field goal every game. I mean, like the Spurs game wasn't as good, but we all know that game was rough for everyone. So I'm just going to not count that one. But pretty much he was plus in terms of plus minus in every game except for the Spurs game. And I'm really liking how consistent he is. Like, it's easier to make predictions about the team as well when players are consistent. And I just think it's so valuable to have that from him. And the thing that's great about him as well is that it's like in his own way. Like I know everyone compares Mark and Serge together, but each of them are so strong in very opposite ways that both are valuable. And so, yeah, I'm just really happy with what he's doing. And I mean, ironically, it tends to align with when Gasol is out. So that might be part of the reason, but I'm on the Serge train. Okay,
that's fair. I actually also picked Serge Ibaka as my King of the North. He just had an excellent week, and once again with when Mark went down with injury and he's in the starting role. And, he is a starter, that he's good enough to be a starter on any other team and even on this team. He just was, he gave exactly what you need from him. And maybe that goes to your point about consistency, Esi. Serge just keeps scoring. He keeps scoring, getting the rebounds, protecting the rim. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, also became this week the first player to ever in NBA history to have 500 3-pointers and 1,500 blocks. And so that just speaks to the I don't know, his defensive and offensive presence. This guy didn't come into the league thinking that or already good at shooting threes. That was something that was developed over time and is now a threat that the Raptors get to capitalize on. It stretches the floor. Don't leave that guy open. He will shoot the three, and he's got a good shooting percentage. So this is great. I do also have an honorable mention for Pascal Siakam. He was named the Eastern Conference Player of the Week this week. I know that actually surprised a lot of Raptors fans. They were like, really? Did he play that good? And it's kind of a luxury when you can have a player not play as good as what you expect because you've seen him just absolutely shine. And so he has a quote unquote average game or average week, but still get named Player of the Week. And also, he just had, I really feel like he's coming into his pre-injury form over the last week. So that's been nice to see. All right, let's move into the next segment, our court jester of the week. And Esi, this time we're going to start with you. Who was kind of like your not so standout player this time around?
Yeah, so court jester of the week. This week is kind of tough because when you're winning, like I said, it's hard, when you're winning. That sounded like the opposite, but anyway. So no one particularly stood out like a sore thumb. So I had to be really nitpicky with this pick. Like I had to, this is not a huge deal in context, but we have to nitpick here. So my choice is Chris Boucher. And it's kind of a silly reason. I just saw Sonali's face. She made like the most disgusted face.
Very defensive around Chris Boucher, I think.
So like I said, it is a bit of a silly reason, but it's just because, and he's been playing great. Don't get me wrong. He's been playing great defense. He's been blocking shots. He's been getting dunks and putbacks, but his threes have suddenly turned into bricks.
Yeah, I see that, Esi.
Really awful looking bricks. It's just, I don't know what's happening. And it could be the playing time has gone down. He's out of rhythm, or gone down, excuse me. He's out of rhythm. So that might be it. But it's one of those things where his threes were kind of the cherry on top. We don't expect him to be great at threes, but it was the cherry on top of things. So we got used to it. So now that it's turned into an olive instead of a cherry, it's kind of really noticeable. And I don't like olives. Sorry for anybody who likes olives, but to me, olives are not good. So that's why that came out. But so it's just, I just want him to fix his threes because one of the bonuses, like I said about him, is that he could hit that open three. You know what I mean? So like I said, nitpicking this week, not a terrible thing, but it just was very ugly to see, very, very ugly to see. Okay, so that's my court jester of the week.
That's great. And, I hadn't really thought of it until you said it, but I remember at the beginning of the season when I first watched him shoot threes, I remember thinking, I can't believe those go in, but I really did get used to seeing these awful looking 3-pointers go in. And now you're right. They look like the outcome now looks like what it should look like. Absolute bricks going up this week. You're right. Okay.
Yeah.
Who is your court jester of the week?
So I actually had to really think about this as well too. Like you said, when we're winning, it's really hard to pick somebody, and also because Pat McCaw has a face mask on right now, we can't really pick on him anymore. It's just mean. So I actually chose Nick Nurse as my court jester of the week, and solely based on, and this is solely that odd 4-guard lineup that he had against the Pistons that just brought us extremely close in score. And, you know, if it wasn't for Fred VanVleet having saved us in the end, it wasn't a good call. And I kind of just thought, you know, Nick, like, okay, now you're going to be an all-star coach and you're going to be out there with Kyle and Pascal and Team Giannis. And I just kind of was like, I wonder if like Dwayne Casey got to him. And I read somewhere that like when he was in Detroit, he sort of waved at Dwayne, and Dwayne didn't really, he just didn't acknowledge Nick. You know, it was one of those funny things, and I kept watching him the whole night, and I could tell like he was on edge in Detroit. And I think it was also maybe a little bit of the panic that, you know, every time we see the Pistons, like somebody gets hurt. So yeah, so he's my court jester. And then if I had to pick a player, I would pick O'Shea Brissett, just because, you know, Sarah, in the beginning, you always say somebody who makes you laugh. It's not always just about who's not doing so great on the court, but O'Shea has been like the number one hype man from the bench, and he's just been dancing and like creating so much just Raptors hype, like even on his Instagram. So I just really felt like O'Shea was bringing a lot to the court with his antics.
So he's a literal court jester, is what you're saying.
A literal court jester.
And entertaining the kings and queens of the kingdom.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to go with my literally the opposite of a literal court jester. And I'm going to start with, if there is a basketball god, the basketball god is playing a joke on the Raptors with all of the injuries that are coming our way. I just can't believe that I woke up this morning to this news that Norm has fractured his finger. This was just like, okay, I don't know who's messing with us, but you're driving me nuts. Stop it. My actual person court jester, I'm going to go with OG Anunoby. I was the only one that didn't pick OG Anunoby last week. But this week I am, and it's just purely points production. And still not so much that I want to call him out and be like, come on, OG, play better. It's not necessarily that. But we know that OG is capable of scoring many more points than he has been over the last week or the last few weeks. And so I'm just curious what's actually kind of the block here that has him not be producing. And yeah, I'm choosing OG as my court jester, as room for improvement, or we know the potential's there. So let's see what happens with that.
I think about OG Anunoby, I think a lot of us are coming to the realization that he might actually just be a role player. Like, we all had these big expectations for him and thought, oh, he's going to grow so much. And, you know, our developmental system is so good, so he has to be great. And so I think, like, it's like that little disappointment, too, of being like, oh, you know, maybe this is just what he's going to be. And even speaking of Kobe Bryant, he even invited OG Anunoby to his Mamba camp in the summer. And because it was like an invite-only type of thing. So even Kobe saw something in OG Anunoby, you know, that we all kind of see. So it's the fact that he's not really living into maybe we put expectations too high. Maybe our expectations were completely off. But yeah, also that disappointment, like I said, of like, oh, maybe this is just what he's going to be. And he's not going to be that anything more than a role player, really.
All right, so let's move into our next segment, which is our tea time segment, and we're going to turn this right over to Sonali. Sonali, go ahead.
Yeah, so we didn't get a chance to talk about this last week as much, but it's very relevant this week considering Nick Nurse is now coaching Team Giannis in the All-Stars. But the whole topic of, you know, is Nick Nurse, are Nick Nurse and Kyle Lowry and Pascal Siakam going to befriend Giannis? And are we going to do everything we can to bring him to Team Raptors? So Sarah, what's your take on this one? And just a note to the fans, Sarah has now started to spell Giannis's name Yannus, just to remind herself how to pronounce it.
Yeah, after kind of getting that so wrong on the last episode, I decided, okay, I'm gonna have to just do this phonetically and then I'll figure it out. So now I know how to say his name. It's Giannis. Hey, congratulations me. Okay, so so I'm actually, what exactly is tampering versus friendship? I actually think this is a really hard line or a difficult question to answer. I mean, these players have relationships with each other. They're going to be at the All-Star game. They're going to be playing together. Nick is actually going to be the coach. There's going to be conversations that will be had. So at what point are we saying, okay, it's tampering? Is it tampering to say, oh, I'd love to play with you one day? Or this has been so fun playing with you. It'd be great to do it again. I don't actually know what that line is in terms of what the league would call tampering or not. But, you know, and also if Giannis just has a really pleasant experience with Kyle and Pascal and Nick, and he just enjoys himself, I mean, yay. Bessie?
So in terms of tampering, if we go by what the fans think, tampering is pretty much everything at this point. Any sort of interaction or slightest smirk is tampering. So yeah, okay, that's not really the rules. But anyway, one thing I do want to add why this tea is especially sweet is because it's on top of what Giannis said last week, where he made some very positive comments about Masai Ujiri at NBA Paris. And he also had mentioned that if he had a chance to, pick Pascal Siakam and Joel Embiid for his team, he would. So that just makes it, you know, when you put it all together, it sounds very juicy to have them all on the same team.
Yeah, and we all know that, like, Masai Ujiri and how he's just not shy when it comes to making these sort of bold upgrades to the roster. So, 2021 could be Team Giannis and the Raptors. I don't know.
Do you guys actually really think Giannis is coming?
It's so far away still in my mind. I don't know. Anything can happen between now and then. I think if the Raptors make another really deep run in the playoffs, or if they win another championship, we're talking the chances go up again. But like, I just genuinely don't know. Also, like, I just don't know what's important to him for his career and his life. I don't know if that's been reported on. I don't know if he's ever publicly made any statements to that effect. So I don't know.
I mean, maybe this is just me being the realist person. But I think he's 80% likely to stay in Milwaukee, 10% likely to come to the Raptors, and then 10% likely to go somewhere else. That's just if I'm being really realistic, jokes aside. But we can make that a whole new topic another day.
Okay, let's do that.
It's a deal.
Yeah, I think that's it's really hard to also, just with the way the team has been playing now, it's hard to see it kind of blown up. Like, it's hard to project that. And also, like, Pascal is just, he's going to be the next sort of, I guess, Kawhi Leonard, in my opinion. So just get really good, get really better from your growing pains.
You know what? What was I going to say? It also depends, too, on if the Bucks lose to us again. Because if they lose to us, coming to the Raptors will be risking what happened to Kevin Durant when he went to the team he lost to, and he was seen as, like, soft. So he wouldn't want to repeat that same, stigma or whatever that happened when Kevin Durant went to the Warriors. So in a way, we don't want the Bucks to lose to us in the Eastern Conference final. Well, we do, because we want to win, but like, it'd be better if they lost to someone in an earlier round so that the Raptors aren't given the blame.
So we're not like the good luck Chuck, and we're actually the bride at the end.
Because we already beat them once, but luckily there's some time in between, so he could forget about that. Okay, no, he won't forget about that. But it'd be worse if like every year they keep losing to the Raptors, and it's like, no, you can't join the Raptors. You're gonna be looked at as soft and all the things they call Durant. So
fair enough.
All right, well, let's then move to the next segment, which is our Around the League segment. And Esi, I'm going to turn this part over to you. Go ahead.
Sounds good. So yeah, a big part of the Around the League this week was all the all-star selections, the controversy about who was snubbed, and because the reserves were announced, and it caused some big debate about Bradley Beal being snubbed and why Kyle Lowry was chosen. Specifically, there's a video on TNT of Shaq, Charles, EJ, and Kenny debating whether Kyle Lowry should have been chosen or not. So if you haven't seen that video, definitely check it after our podcast episode, so you'll understand. But pretty much Shaq thought that Kyle Lowry shouldn't be there and that Bradley Beal should have been chosen instead. And Charles and Kenny were arguing in favor of Kyle, just saying the winning matters. And, Shaq was saying, oh, the winning shouldn't be important. And then we'll get into some of the things that Bradley Beal's agent said, his accusations about the coaches who voted. So anyway, ladies, what are your thoughts on, Shaq's take and Charles's take on why or why not Kyle didn't deserve it or to deserve it?
Well, I mean, I think the point Shaq was trying to make was something along the lines of the all-star selection is an individual selection that should somehow be separated from your team's performance. And it's not a terrible take in the sense that, we do look at the individual's actual numbers. But I am curious about how he thinks you really can separate your team's performance from an individual's performance in any really meaningful way. And what I mean by that is, like, take Kyle Lowry off the Raptors and what happens to this team. And we can't ever know. That would just be total speculation. But we can see that a lot of the stats that people don't record, but the ones like game impact. I think Kyle Lowry is something like 7th overall in NBA history of game impact, or maybe it's just right now with the current crop of players. In any event, he's easily top 10 of players that actually help their team win. And so from that's him performing as an individual but part of a team. Like his quality, his all-star quality to me is synergy. He brings something, he makes everyone around him better. And I'm not entirely sure that I can completely agree with Shaq that you can separate your team's performance in the assessment of what makes an all-star. So, yeah.
Sonali, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Sarah on that. And maybe it's just because of like my psychology around, like my personal psychology around being a team player. But I mean, like, I don't know if you guys saw the tweet from his fiance, Kamaya Adams, I think her name is.
Yeah, I saw it.
But there's been like, it has a lot of profanity in it, so I won't say what she said, but she basically said like all-star means like stars of the game, and he's a star and he's an all-star, numbers don't lie, that sort of thing. And she sort of went on to say it's a popularity contest. It's about how many Instagram followers somebody has, and it's become a joke and that sort of thing. And I don't agree with that. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, the all-star game that weekend is not going to determine who's going to win the Eastern Conference Finals or who's going to win the championship. But I know in the last podcast we talked about sort of, the point system and how things have been changed in the last couple of years. And yeah, I mean, At this point, I think I'm in the same line of thought as Sarah is. So I can empathize with what Shaq was saying, but at the end of the day, I think it's sort of, you're playing with other people on the court. So that's team.
So to add to what you said, yeah, I agree with both of you for sure. And also too, one thing that Bradley Beal's a bit unlucky with this year is that I don't know if it's unlucky, actually, he's influencing how his team plays, but anyway, is that the Eastern Conference is broken out so much. Like, it's either you're really, really good or you're really, really bad. And then there's two exceptions, which is Orlando and Brooklyn. So it's like, it's one of those years where it's just like, you just can't overlook how low of amount of wins Bradley Beal's team has, the Wizards. Like, I can understand if the Wizards were at least at 20 games they've won, at least, okay, maybe we could make more of an argument that he's willing his team to the 20 wins and, it's, comparable to what Kyle Lowry is doing. But when it's so bad, it's like they're losing so bad. Like, the record is 16-31. Like, that is really, really bad. So in this case, it's one of those examples where it's just the East is too broken out that you got to reward winning. And speaking of Kamia's comment about, who's a star, it turns out the fans don't think he's a star. They didn't vote for him much. The media doesn't think he's a star. They didn't vote for him much. And then now the coaches don't think he's a star. So he might not actually be as much of a star as, she thinks. And that is part of being a star, actually, all the stuff she was complaining about, like followers and popularity, branding, like that's part of being a star. So he doesn't have it. Kyle Lowry has more of an effect similar to what Chris Paul does for OKC. It's like there's tons of things that are just not quantifiable, I guess you can say. They're not in the stats, but he really elevates the team with his playmaking, with his leadership, with how he pushes the pace. And those are things that unless you watch the Raptors, you might not see. But the coaches, they recognize it and they think he deserves it. And the Raptors are the number 2 team in the East. You can't have, you can't just discount that. That's very, very important in my opinion, because it just shows how much he is a star even within his team and elevating his team as a whole. So anyway, that's my take on it. I disagree with Shaq. And also too, as a side note, if you look at all the other reserves, they have similar stats to Kyle Lowry. So I don't know why I know maybe he was looking at guards and stuff like that, but in general, you can't say that those are not all-star numbers when a lot of the other reserves have similar numbers. So anyway, so that was that. And then lastly, before we move on to predictions for next week, Bradley Beal's agent actually accused the coaches of intentionally not voting for Bradley Beal to penalize him for staying with the Wizards. So what do you guys think of that? True or false?
What would be in it for the coaches to do that? That seems like such an odd take. I'm gonna go with hard false on that one.
The look on Sarah's face. Yeah, it just seems silly at this point. I mean, they have nothing to gain by doing that. I mean, they're going to try and pressure him to leave by not voting him all-star every year. Like, they don't care that much. So, Sonali, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Sarah on this. Like, it just fake news.
I think the agent has a bonus written into his contract if Bradley Beal got named an all-star. That's what I think.
Probably. Yeah, and then why did he encourage him to stay? He just probably wanted to get a bigger percentage of that big contract that he signed. So anyway, that's a whole other topic. So yeah, that's it for Around the League. Sarah, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so coming up this week for the Raptors, we have tomorrow a game against the Chicago Bulls. And then Wednesday, we play the Indiana Pacers. And then on Friday, we play the Indiana Pacers again. So there's a home and away. And then on Saturday, we play the Brooklyn Nets. And so we are going to take predictions from each of you. I just want to let you know, Allison has sent me her predictions because, of course, she wants to be part of our ongoing weekly competition. Last week, we were all right. We all predicted an undefeated week, and we were correct. This week, Allison predicts the Raptors will go 3-1. They will win against the Bulls. They will win both games against the Pacers. And then she predicts we'll lose against the Nets on the second half of the back-to-back on Saturday. So that's...
Wait.
Yes. She thinks
No, didn't she say Bulls win, 1 loss in Indiana?
no.
You were trying to make her wrong, so she loses.
Well, I asked her, why do you think they win both games in Indiana and then lose to the Brooklyn Nets? And she said, contrarian. So that's her answer. In any event, we'll see what happens on this. Esi, what is your prediction for the week?
So I'm going to go 3-1. I just don't see us beating Indiana twice like that, because what's going to happen is whichever team wins the first one, the other team is going to come back with everything they learned and play differently. So I just think that it's going to be 3-1. I think we'll win the other two. So I'm going 3-1.
Sonali?
Yeah, I'm going to say 3-1, but I'm also going to make it interesting by saying that I think it's the second game against the Pacers we're going to lose.
So we're going in order now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it'll make more interesting next week when we see what actually happens. I'm going to go 4-0 again. And what's in my mind right now is when the Raptors were in the finals last year and Nick said, let's go to Golden State and get 1-1. And Kawhi went, F it, let's get both. And that's how I feel, how they're just going to be like against Indiana. Of course, let's get both. So that's my take. Raptors go 4-0.
And Chris Boucher is going to get so many threes in the next couple games.
I hope.
I love it. Okay, so everybody, that concludes this week. Unless do any of you have anything else to say?
Oh, I just have a few personal shout outs to some fans. One of our fans just had a surgery, so we just want to send our love and recovery to him. He's been with us from the beginning, even though we've only been here this is our 5th podcast recording.
7th.
Or 7th. Oh my gosh. I've lost count.
Yeah.
And then also one of our other fans just became a father, and we have a new Raptors fan that's now also going to join in the podcast listening. And yeah, just those are my 2 shout outs to the people that listen to us.
Can I give a special shout out to Sonali for running our Instagram, and great job she's been doing there. So I just want you guys to go check out our Instagram at Raptor Queens. Bit of a shameless plug. But Sonali has been really doing a great job there. So I want you guys to go see, because it's a new page that we just launched.
Speaking of shameless shout outs, I mean, all of you are listening anyway, but make sure you tell your friends. You should, rate us on whatever podcast you're listening to, ideally 5 stars. Yeah, just give us that 5-star rating. And you can follow us, tell your friends to follow us on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Buzzsprout, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Raptor Queens, and on YouTube. Don't forget. So that's it. Thank you all for tuning in. We will talk to you next week. And we hope you enjoy this week, Raptors basketball.
Yay! Dynamite.